Legislative budget analysts told lawmakers this week that the tax revenue projections in Governor DeWine's proposed two-year state budget are off by 25%. The Legislative Service Commission has recommended that the proposed spending increase in the DeWine budget be cut by more than $700 million. And the Senate this week took a big whack at DeWine's proposed 18-cent per gallon gas tax increase, leveling the House plan for a 10.7-cent increase to just 6 cents. Joe Ingles, this is Governor DeWine's first state operating budget and transportation budget out of the gate, and he has been nicked good and proper. What does this portend going forward?
Well, you know, it was interesting that the same day that he unveiled all this, you know, and the same day he set all this out, they were already going at it, you know, very fast and furious, and the legislature trying to reduce the amount. The lawmakers tend to not like taxes, period. Okay, and so there was this sense that they would come in with less, and that's why we heard Governor DeWine, when he was talking to Ohioans, he was saying, we need every dime of this. We need this for our security and our safety. And he was trying to make that point loud and clear. But, you know, what we're seeing now is lawmakers don't want to get that high of a tax. They don't want to grant that, but yet they want to figure out a way in order to, you know, do the majority of the things that they would do with the transportation budget. So they're just trying now behind closed doors to take all of their different proposals. The Senate didn't give him as much as the House did. The House didn't give him what he wanted. So they're all behind closed doors right now trying to come to some agreement, and, you know, you don't know what's going on.
Are they banking on the fact, Jesse Balmer, that Mike DeWine is no John Kasich? He's not going to lash out the way John Kasich was known to do. He's not going to throw anyone under a bus. His demeanor is different than his predecessor. Both Republicans, very different people.
I think it might be more about the Ohio lawmakers have been very big on having their control recently. The governor can suggest what he or she wants to suggest, and then they're going to take it and do what they want with it. They got very used to doing that with John Kasich's ideas, things like increasing the severance tax, expanding the sales tax to services, just never got off the floor with the GOP legislature. So I think they were going to do this to Mike DeWine regardless, but I think it might be an education for Mike DeWine that the lawmakers are not just going to go along with him because he's a new governor.
Well, yeah, and Mike Miller, I mean, what do you make of that? I'm kind of thinking about the fact that no taxes. One lawmaker said last week, maybe from the House, that this isn't our job to make sure all the roads are fit to drive on in the state of Ohio. And I thought, and when the Columbus Dispatch came out with an editorial, they said, well, actually, yeah, it is. It's your job. I mean, what do you make of this right now? The no taxes ever?
I don't know. I think Jesse's right when she talks and says that it's just the legislature showing their muscle or something and making sure that the governor knows that they're there and have a lot of power and so forth. That's the only thing I can figure. But again, that seems to be the political world we live in now. Here we got a Republican governor, Republican legislature, and they keep, fighting, and there's no easy road to anything anymore.
What is it? Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes.
And that's where we are. You usually end up, when Democrats had the majority, they ended up fighting among themselves over little issues. So there may be something to that. I think it surprised the governor. I'm going to really be honest with you. I don't think he was ready for this, what Jesse describes as the independence or the flexing of the muscles of the General Assembly towards the governor. I don't think he was ready for that. I thought they'd play ball. I thought they did a good job. They floated 28%. We all knew 28% wasn't going to fly. But we thought somewhere between 12 and 18% would work, and that he had a good strategy moving forward. I don't know what it is. Now, I'm going to say this to you. There's a guy named Brownback. You ever heard of this guy called Brownback from Kansas?
Oh.
Yeah, and he came in with a program, and when he finished that state, they got rid of him because of all of his cutting that he tried to do. We're in a very precarious state now, and people don't want to talk about it. Most of the state's revenue comes from sales tax right now. Sales tax. Whoever thought that would be the day? And it's highly regressive. Jesse makes another point. I don't think they've really looked at that. They're afraid of taxes, but they're not balancing what government's supposed to do. Government's supposed to provide services to people. Now, if you want to have a third world highway system where people are trying to avoid craters in the road, you can have that. And there are some streets in Ohio and in Columbus that's true. Now, whether you want to continue that, I don't think so. I think it looks bad. I think it's dumb. But in the end, I think they'll find a way to get through this.
They will find a way.